نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالحق بشيرا ونذيرا بين يدي الساعة من يطيع الله ورسوله فقد رشد من يعصيهما فلا يضر إلا بنفسه ولا يضر الله شيئا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطيع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما يا أيها الذين آمنوا ادخلوا في السلم كافة ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين. It is indeed the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we have gathered once again to remind ourselves that the guidance is the guidance that comes from God only. And He assured us that وَإِمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكَ مِنِّي هُدًى فَمَنْ تَبِعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. That if you connect with this guidance and if you follow that guidance, you will have nothing to worry and nothing to fear. And this was the simplest message that all the messengers of the Prophet of God shared with humanity. Everyone focused primarily on the simple fact that rather than accepting the guidance that comes from human beings that might relate to a specific interest, you focus on the guidance that comes from God because He is universal, He is the master, He is the one who is the creator, and He's neutral, and He does not take sides of people on the basis of their race or ethnicity or culture. But the credit to ensure that each and every word of the divine message is preserved in its totality and its originality goes to Prophet Muhammad, who ensured that everything that he received from God is preserved in writing in his lifetime. This is the unique feature of the character of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He reminded us that each one of us will be held accountable for everything that we do in this world. And on the day of judgment, each one of us will be asked, that read the book that was given to you when you were alive and you were writing, and today is the day to read that book, and your destination will be determined on that basis. And then he also assured us, that those people who are pious, who are responsible, who connect with God, are the ones who succeed in this life. One of the methodologies of the Quran in explaining its message to those who believe is that it first gives the concept and then backs that concept with a understanding of the situation around the people, and then ask them to use their imagination to find the link between them and then apply it in their life. Because it's a dynamic faith. It is not something that is frozen in the 7th century. It gives that opportunity to each and every human being to basically relate with that message within their context and their situation. So there was an incident that took place some 5,000 miles away from Prophet around 632, when Muslims had just migrated to Medina, that the Byzantines and the Persians fought, and the Byzantines and the Romans lost. And in what we call the Surah, or the chapter 30 of the Quran, this incident is mentioned. وَغُلِبَتُ الرُّومُ فِي أَدْنَى الْأَرْضِ وَمِنْ بَعْدِ غَلَبِهِمْ سَيَغْلِبُونَ. That the Romans have been overpowered in the far-off land, and pretty soon they will overcome. Now, it was not a reference to a historical incident that was taking place. It was not a book of history. For that, we can go anywhere else to look at what was happening. It was basically a message that was being given to those people who were the believers, everything that happens in the world is your concern. You cannot keep yourself away from the happenings around you. You cannot live in isolation. Everything that is happening elsewhere would have an impact on your community and your society. And then you have to basically understand what is happening. You cannot simply say that because I am a Muslim, I am isolated, I have nothing to do with what is happening in Persia or what is happening in Rome or what is happening in China. These are my concerns. And that is the principle that the Quran is bringing out. That the concerns that the human society face and the issues that human society face should be the concern of all those people who believe in God and who believe in God's message. Then there is another verse in the Quran which came some 6 years later. It is in Surah An-Nisa, verse 75, which is the 4th chapter of the Quran. وَمَا لَكُمْ لَا تُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَالْمُسْتَضْعَفِينَ مِنَ الرِّجَالِ وَالنِّسَاءِ وَالْوِلْدَانِ الَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا أَخْرِجْنَا مِنْ هَذِهِ الْقَرْيَةِ الظَّالِمَةِ وَاجْعَل لَنَا مِن لَّدُنكَ وَلِيًّا وَاجْعَل لَنَا مِن لَّدُنكَ نَصِيرًا. Then how come you do not stand for those weaker people who, among men, women, and children who have been deprived of their basic rights and who have been thrown out of their land and who have been calling for help, for support? Now, depending on how we relate to these verses, our perspective on these issues. If we think that the best tribute to God is to recite these verses in the voice of Abdul Basit, then we would keep on reciting it, listening to that one, and basically enjoying the words of God and saying that how beautiful is the Arabic language and how beautiful is the Quran and how beautiful is the tajweed and all those kind of things. If you are only concerned about Muslims, then we would concern only about those issues when Muslims who are of our orientation, our own sectarian understanding, suffer, only then we could stand up and say, well, people are being. But if we believe in the universality of Islam, and if we believe that God is a God of all, He is neither Jew, nor Christian, nor Muslim, nor Hindu, then probably our attitude would be different. So, wherever we would find that the rights of people to live a decent life and a dignified life is being impacted, it would become imperative on us to stand for their rights, no matter how weak we are and no matter how far we are. It doesn't matter whether it is in India or in China or in Timbuktu or any other place. Whenever we get the information that the dignity of fellow human beings have been taken away from them, they have been deprived of that, then regardless of their faith, regardless of their background, it becomes our responsibility to do something or to say something. Sometimes our response depends on our sectarian, our ethnic, our cultural, our geographical interests. But this is not what the Quran says. Fi sabilillah, in the cause of Allah. The cause of Allah simply means that you would not divide humanity on the basis of religion, you would not divide humanity on the basis of ethnicity, you would not divide humanity on the basis, because all come from God. That is the simplest understanding that we have. So when we look around us, we find during the last 100 years, a lot has been done by the power elites of the world to deprive ordinary human beings of their human rights and human dignity. I don't have to go that far in this country. Some 64, some 60 years ago, people were being lynched because of their race, their color. Even though many of the immigrant Muslims came in the 60s and 70s, but few had the courage to stand up against that kind of violation that was taking place. even though the Muslim world was quite strong and, active, alive, yet it did not take up the issue of those people. Neither, if you look at the debates that took place in the United Nations, you won't find any reference, any kind of mention by any of the Muslim governments or any of the Muslim scholars or leaders on the issue. On the contrary, you find that during the time when these people were being enslaved in Africa, the ships carrying them were passing through the straits controlled by Muslims, and you do not find a reference from any single Muslim scholar questioning that practice of slavery and that kind of inhumanity that was taking place at that particular time. وَمَا لَكُمْ لَا تُقَاتِلُونَ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَالْمُسْتَضَعَفِينَ مِنَ الرِّجَالِ وَالنِّسَاءِ الَّذِينَ يَقُولُونَ رَبَّنَا أَخْرِجْنَا مِنْ هَٰذِهِ الْقَرْيَةِ الظَّالِمَةِ وَاجْعَل لَّنَا مِن لَّدُنكَ وَلِيًّا وَاجْعَل لَّنَا مِن لَّدُنكَ نَصِيرًا. Clear violation of the divine command. Not because they want it, but because of the interpretation and understanding. Because of the way they perceived how the message should be relayed. And that is the challenge that we face today. As young people who are living in a multicultural and multi-ethnic and multi-religious society, as people who are exposed to all kinds of information and education, it becomes our responsibility, not only as the educated people in the world, but as the believers in the divine guidance, to decide and determine our action on the basis of truth and on the basis of the fundamental principle that the Quran says, that is standing up for the dignity of human being, as the Quran very clearly says, وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ, that every human being deserves a dignified existence. And if we don't do that, and if we act on the basis of our own ethnic, cultural, political realities, then there's no point in having even a faith. It makes no sense. It makes no sense to pray. It makes no sense to fast. Maybe for personal glorification you can do that, but when it comes to your relationship with God, then the question is that are you concerned about the dignity that God has given to every human being? And that is a fundamental thing in Islam. That is a fundamental thing in Islam. And in that particular perspective, we see what is happening in certain places in the world today. Whether it is India, whether it is Syria, whether it is Nigeria, whether it is in certain parts of the Middle East, including Palestine, we look at it from that perspective. And we cannot simply say that because my president and my country or my political elites are not in favor of those things, I would compromise on the truth. If we are not in a position to challenge and speak up, then at least in our own hearts, as the Prophet said, that there are 3 stages of your own relationship with what is happening around you. Either you stop what is happening, or you speak up against that, or you at least convince yourself that you do not subscribe to those kind of ideas, so that you are not a witness to what is happening. You are not a supporter of what is happening outside. And this is one of the things that our generation and the younger generations have to cultivate. Because we as human beings have allowed the sufferings of the fellow human beings to go for long because of our own apathy and our own indifference to what is happening. Because we don't speak. Because we compromise on those things. Because we don't stand, then it comes to. Now, let me bring a very interesting movement that has been going on for this justice, for this truth, for this human dignity, nowhere else but in India. Of all the places in the world where a group of women, housewives, to upon themselves, the hijab wearing women. Half of them are wearing veils of the niqab. They are not employed, they are housewives. They took it upon themselves to come out in the streets challenging what they perceive as the fascist policies of their government. And for the last 70 days, these women have been sitting in the streets of India's capital, 24 hours, in shifts, protesting that. And that has led to similar kind of movements in 5,000 cities in India. Unheard of and unusual. Mostly Muslim people. What is very interesting is that the religious clergy and those who claim to be the spokesperson of the faith are the ones who are critical of their movement. Are the ones who are saying that you should go back and, we would negotiate. But these women are saying it's an issue of our own future, our own dignity. It is not about us, it is about the people in general, and we would stand for their rights. None of them have compromised on their faith. They still wear the hijab, they still pray in those places. They in fact have built a library also in their places of protest, where basically they distribute religious books to tell everyone who's participating in those. Now, one would have expected that, women all around the world would sympathize with this movement. Would stand up for these people, would speak up. At least the younger ones, because it is unheard of in Islam's history that a woman-led movement for social dignity and human dignity is being run by those people who are marginalized and who have been marginalized in Muslim society for so long. And that is what basically what the faith means. It is not that you simply go in the mosque and then keep reminding God that how great He is. He would be great regardless whether you remind Him or you don't remind Him. The sun does not need our validation. Even if we close the eyes, it would still be there. Its light would still be there. But we have to keep our eyes open so that and this is what basically is the issue that I brought in the first, that it depends on how we look at the Quran, how we understand its message. If we see it in a narrow sectarian perspective, then it would not serve the purpose for which it was sent. It would defeat that very purpose for which it was sent. The purpose of the Quran was very simple. كَانَ النَّاسُ أُمَّةً وَاحِدَةً وَبَعَثَ اللَّهُ النَّبِيِّينَ مُبَشِّرِينَ وَمُنذِرِينَ وَأَنزَلَ مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابَ بِالْحَقِّ لِيَحْكُمَ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ فِيمَا اخْتَلَفُوا فِيهِ. All humanity is one. And the message of the messengers was primarily to enable people to overcome their differences so that they could live in peace and harmony with each other. And how do they do that? They do it when they stand for justice and truth. Because falsehood never succeeds, and falsehood always creates problems for all of us. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسوله الكريم خاتم الأنبياء والمرسلين. إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما. اللهم صل على سيدنا مولانا محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم إنك حميد مجيد. So there are a few things that we can think in terms of relating with this message of the Quran, that first develop that understanding that whenever there is anything that is taking place in the world that is detrimental to human dignity, regardless whether we are related with that community and that society, we should basically keep ourselves aware of that. That's important. At least in our own conscience. And secondly, if we are in a position to say something, we will say. If we are not in that position, at least in our own hearts, we would think that it is not right. And then the least that we can do, at least pray to God to help those people who are standing for that kind of justice. And then use the social media for that purpose, to express your views. If you think that it would not impact your own interests, why not use that kind of thing to propagate those kind of ideas? And that is what is least expected from each one of us, at least from those who are educated ones. Because there are out there so many people who are still living in ignorance of the Quran, of the message of God, of the realities that are taking place. And if those who are educated would not come forward to help them understand the realities, no one is going to tell them. And this cycle of ignorance and the cycle of violence will go on and on and on, impacting generations after generation. So that is what basically we can do, that in that particular respect, we should not only be concerned about the violation of the rights of Muslims. No. Every human being. That is the essence of faith. Even if the perpetrators of crimes against people happen to be Muslims, we should not hesitate. We should not be sectarian. Because that is the foundation of the true relationship to God and to God's message. Without that claim, it's basically for a sectarian God rather than a universal God. And when the Quran says Rabbul Alameen, he is not saying Rabbul Muslimin and Rabbul Mu'mineen. He is describing himself as Rabbul Alameen unconditionally, without any ifs, without any buts. So it is in this particular context, let us look at the message of the Quran and let us look at our own role in the community and the society so that we could contribute to its betterment, we could contribute to its growth, and we could contribute to its freedom from all kind of vestige interests that have been dominating it for ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما رب اغفر وارحم أنت خير الراحمين أقم الصلاة إن الصلاة تنهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون ولذكر الله تعالى أعلى وأولى